Hey up everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today is Sunday and I wanted to do another discussion thoughts type video. I've done these types of videos in the past and they've gained quite a lot of traction and a lot of comments and discussions around a particular subject. Stay tuned and let's get into it. Got a lovely coffee on the go today, and today's topic is going to be centered around a discussion with the BRZ, the GT86 and the Scion FRS, both past and future. Future ones won't apply to the Scion FRS simply because Scion doesn't exist anymore, so that car will not be arriving. So before we get into any real meat and bones about the subject, let's just talk about the stock car and the history of the GT86 and its predecessors. So the GT86, the BRZ and the Scion FRS were launched in 2012. They came with a 2-litre naturally aspirated engine that produced around 197 brake horsepower and around 210 Newton meters of torque. Looking at the top line figures then, they aren't outstanding. This car was not made to be fast in a straight line. It wasn't made to please journalists with the amount of power that it's got or with the amount of torque that it's got. But what it was is a car that was supposed to be agile, well handling and good for the track, good for time attack, good for autocross, good for drifting, and just a very well packaged car. The GT86 is a natural predecessor to the AE86, or if you watch Initial D, the main car in the movie. It was made to be a relatively cheap, lightweight, cost-saving car that was naturally aspirated and handled brilliantly. Around that time you had the Skylines, you had the Supras, you had the RX-7s, which all trumped this car, but it was an incredibly popular car over in Japan and has since gained a cult following over here in the UK and the US as well. And with that in mind, even since the release of the GT86 and its twins, people have been itching for more power. People have been asking Subaru and asking Toyota to put forced induction as a standard piece of equipment, but they've never done it. Not long after the release of the cars, HKS jumped on the bandwagon with a turboed car, Cosworth jumped on the bandwagon with their fantastic supercharged cars, and you have different manufacturers and different tuners doing things for these cars, which is upping the power. So a lot of owners, including myself and a lot of people who were looking at these cars, asked one question. Why are Subaru and Toyota refusing to put a supercharger or a turbocharger into these cars when it would make them such a good car? So Tetsuya Tada, who is the chief engineer for the GT86, got asked this question a lot of times. I'm going to pick this one particular response that he gave to Car Advice when they asked him the question. So I'm just going to read the quote off of my phone, but just listen to what he has to say. When we launched the 86, I got literally millions of questions from around the world of when would you be launching a turbo version. I believe that oftentimes when I answered that there won't be a turbo version, there were some articles which in the media said that Mr. Tada didn't like turbos. That's not really true. I do like turbos, however, if we come up with a turbo version of the 86 and boost the power, it would result in necessary changes of basic configuration completely to come up with a car that I would be satisfied with. Tada-san then went on to explain that the reason why he didn't want to put a turbo into the car was because it would upset the weight distribution. So Toyota designed this car to have a front biased weight distribution to give the car its agile and quirky handling. If they were to put a turbo into that, it would throw it off completely, meaning they would have to go back to the drawing board and design a complete new way of working the car to ensure that the weight distribution is how Tada-san wanted it to be. So we're just going to carry on with this quote that he mentioned, and he said that the GT86 was never meant to handle more power, staying true to the AE86's ethos of a low-powered, balanced rear-wheel drive sports car. To come up with a high-powered car would require engineers to reimagine the car's fundamental dynamics with a completely new platform. So that's the reason why Toyota didn't add forced induction into the mix when looking at the GT86. It's because it's a heed back to the AE86 and that low-powered, low centre of gravity, light, well-handling car of the AE86 generation. So now let's look forward to the new generation of the Subaru BRZ and the GT86, which are going to be landing in 2020 or 2021, with the latter option probably being more realistic, as Subaru's just announced a limited edition BRZ that comes with some nice handling and braking upgrades. So a little bit earlier in this video I was talking about how Tada-san didn't want to put forced induction into the car purely down to weight distribution and the heritage back to the AE86. Will that change for the new one? I personally don't think so, no. They may put a little bit of a higher powered engine into there. There's been talk of a Forester 2.3 litre I think it is, that would be still naturally aspirated but give around 230-235 horsepower, which would be a nice jump up from the previous generation of GT86, but will still leave owners craving that forced induction power, whether it be by supercharger or turbocharger. Of course, this is all speculation. If you want my opinion of it, I just think they're going to give a revised engine of the FA20. I don't know what they're going to call it, but they may put a little bit more power in there just to eliminate the torque dip, which I hope that they do, because it was a disappointment for me and obviously a disappointment for quite a lot of other people who did own these cars. And to be honest, I think that if Subaru or Toyota were to release the next generation of cars with forced induction, whether that be turbocharged or supercharged, I think it would be an incredibly popular car. I feel that it would draw people into ownership of these cars that previously hadn't considered them, whether because they thought they were too slow or they didn't think there was enough potential in them, but I think it would draw more of an audience. But what you've got to consider is Tada-san has already mentioned that he didn't want to put a turbocharger into the car for weight distribution. Not only that, but it would take away from the heritage and the moniker of the 86, which I think Toyota would not do. I think they'll keep the GT86 naturally aspirated, maybe give it a squirt of more power, either a different engine or an uprated or revised engine of the FA20. And when you consider that the new Supra is out, and when you consider that there's talks around a 2 litre Supra, a lot of people will be having to make their mind up between the two, and I don't think Toyota would create the GT86 just to compete with a 2 litre Supra when you've got both cars on the table. So to round out this video and to give you guys something to think about, something to discuss down in the comments, I'm going to give you two hypothetical situations which are my views on what Toyota are going to do moving forward. Situation number one then, so you're going down to the dealership to have a look at the new generation of cars, and you get there to find out it is still naturally aspirated, albeit with a couple of engine tweaks, resulting in 10, 20 or maximum 30 brake horsepower more. Are you still going to be taken in by the GT86 and the BRZ as a driver's car? Although when you look at Tada-san's comments about weight distribution, do you still want forced induction? And if the car did not have forced induction, would it put you off buying another one? Situation number two, you're going down to the same dealership, however this time you discovered that the new cars will have forced induction, and whether that's supercharger or turbocharger, I'm not sure. That's for you to discuss and decide. However, hypothetically speaking, let's just say the cars have 300 brake horsepower. Would you still want more power? Would you want less power? And do you think the ownership base would grow, or would it dwindle because it's taking away from what Tada-san wanted in the original car? And I just want to throw a little bit of a curveball into the forced induction route. So you go and have a look at that car, yet it's parked next to one of the new 2 litre Toyota Supras. Which would you choose and why? Okay, so I know I've waffled on a little bit and I do apologise. However, we have covered a very brief history and origin of the GT86. We've discovered why the current car isn't turbocharged or supercharged, and we've discussed or rather speculated about the new generation of cars and what they will be like. Naturally, I would like to know your thoughts, so please do pop them down in the comments below. What do you think of Tada-san's reasonings around why the current generation isn't turbocharged or supercharged, and what do you think will happen with the new generation? But also, if you enjoy this type of video where I give you guys something to think about, please let me know down in the comments on any other topics you want me to cover. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, it helps me greatly. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, until next time, I'll see you then.